correlation, and of course dispatch and vehicle loading. Right, so it covers everything from A to Z with regards to warehousing. It has the ability to track individual goods and batches as they progress through the system, right? And that's in order to provide a quick and accurate details on progress. But also, it enables quality back checks in the event of quantity or quality failures. So it's quite impressive when you get to understand it and know it. And it does save a lot of work within the warehouse. Now, there are key elements and there's also key benefits. So we're just going to look a quick look at the key elements and the quick key benefits, and then we move on from WMS. All right. Let me see now. Where am I? Yeah. Right. Some of the key elements: receiving, as in receiving the goods, putting away the goods, the inventory management of all the stock, the order processing and the retrieving, and then the shipment preparation. They would be the key elements of the warehouse management system. And again, we're talking about a typical warehouse here or distribution center. The benefits of installing a management system, there are quite a few benefits. First of all, it improves your customer service. It gives you accurate stock records. It also gives you accurate stock locations, right? And it creates a more effective use of staff, right? Including the identification of low productivity or poor picking accuracy. And the idea of that is that, you know, if somebody is not operating to, you know, the standards that are required of them, this will show it, and then it allows them to be retrained, you know, or moved to a different department if that department doesn't suit them. So it can be actually used for that as well. It also, obviously, it gives improvement to the operators, more information to the operators, improved information, improved equipment utilization. You know, you have the fork trucks from all over the bloody place. Better stock replenishment information. You know, a stock goes out, we need stock in replenishment. It tells you when and what you need. The verification of stock location and of picking quantities. Right, so you're not running around the warehouse looking for stuff. It tells you exactly where it is, and it tells you exactly how much you need for an order. Stock rotation. You know, stock rotation we need. It's a must. And it also shows you the sell-by dates. It can record the sell-by dates as the goods come in. And then that leads to fewer stockouts. Fewer stockouts means, you know, you've less items being out of stock, right? So you've no out of stock. Normally, as I said to you before, warehouses carry a buffer stock, right? So there should be no need for stockouts at any time. And again, the system will tell you when you get to the order date, it'll tell you the lead time it's going to take for the time of order to the time of the goods coming to the warehouse, right? And how many items of that particular product you actually need per day. It's called a buffer stock, and it will obviously keep the buffer stock up, you know, to the stock levels required for that lead time. And then you've got the routine performance and status reports. Okay, so they're the benefits and the elements of the warehouse management system. And of course, there are different systems for different types of warehouses. But you will see quite a bit when you get out there into the warehouse operations. All right. Any questions on WMS? That's actually a summary of the functionalities of it. You know, put away, task interleaving, pick replenishment, slotting, cross-docking inventory visibility, work queue resolutions, picking strategies, error correction, simulations, return goods, and cycle counts. There's a lot it can do. There's a huge amount of functions. Okay, we're going to move on now to warehouse safety. And you'll be all glad to know, I assume you'll be all glad to know, I'll be sad to know, but you'll be all glad to know, this is the last unit that you have to cover. All right? And I hope you got as much out of this as you would from any other program. Okay, with regards to warehouse safety, safety issues must be considered within a warehouse. Before we get to that, I need you to understand that employers have a duty of care to you, the employee, right? And certain duties under Section 8 of the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005 puts an onus on the employer to ensure that you as an employee and your safety, health and welfare at work, they've got to protect you. And that is as far as is reasonably practicable, right? In order to prevent workplace injuries and ill health, the employer is required, amongst other things, to provide and maintain a safe workplace and use safe equipment, prevent risks from the use of any article or substance, and from exposure, right, to the likes of physical agents, noise, and vibration. Prevent any improper conduct or behavior likely to put the safety or the health or the welfare of you at risk. Provide instruction and training to all employees on health and safety. Provide protective clothing and equipment to employees, and appoint a competent person as the company's safety officer. Now, that's a requirement if a company has more than 5 employees. Under 5 employees, they don't need to appoint a competent person. Your employee, as an employee, you also have duties, right? Once an employee has been properly trained, right, and instructed, well, then you must take care and look after yourself, your own health, your own safety, and not to put other workers at risk, right? Your duties will be following health and safety instruction provided by the employer, would be to correctly use personal protective equipment, PPE, and clothing, taking care to use equipment safely and as it's intended for, reporting hazards and potential problems, reporting all work-related injuries and incidents that you think could result in harm to your health or to other employees' health. Cooperate with the employer on health and safety issues, right? Incidents, and all matters concerning health and safety. And again, near misses. Report any near misses, because a near miss today could be a fatality tomorrow. So it's important that they are reported. Now, obeying those duties is a vital part of the overall effort to keep people safe in the workplace. Along with the employer's duties, the employee's duties are part of the act. And by the way, they're not optional. Cooperation is vital if the objectives of the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act is to be achieved. I suppose if we start with fire safety in the warehouse, I think that's something like fire safety. Yeah, fire safety awareness. What do you know about fire? Has anyone done the fire safety awareness course?
I think so.
Yeah.
Was it
No.
I remember doing something about like learning how the different extinguishers work on different types of fire.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. The classifications of fire and then the extinguishing of those classifications. Like you've got five classifications, you have five different fire extinguishers. All right. So yeah, it'll be around that mark. It's probably a while since you've done it by the sounds of things. Okay.
Oh, definitely,
Look
yeah.
at yeah. In order to put sorry, first of all, there are three elements in the fire triangle. Right? You cannot start a fire without having those three elements. Obviously, you need a fuel. You also need heat, and then you need oxygen. Now, oxygen is dispersed in the air anyway, right? So you need an ignition to the fuel, and the oxygen is there anyway. Okay, that's what's needed to create or start a fire. Once the fire is started, in order to put out a fire, obviously an extinguisher must be used to nullify or prevent, right, the fire developing. Okay. Now, as I said, there are several types of fire extinguishers. Excuse me. You have extinguishers, such as a water extinguisher, which will cool. It will cool the um, the fire itself. You have water-based foam, which smothers and cools the fire. You have dry powder, which smothers a fire, and then you have CO2, which creates a chemical reaction, which extinguishes a fire. Now, there's also another one called wet chemical. Right, your dry powder is a dry chemical, really. Your wet chemical is an extinguisher you would see in kitchens, as in industrial kitchens, right, or where there's food being produced, right, where you can have, an oil fire as such, a cooking fat fire. What they do is, like the dry powder, they smother it. They create like a crust over it, and it smothers the oxygen. It stops oxygen getting into the fire, right? It stops it developing, so it'll actually put out the fire. It'll extinguish the fire. Again, what are the main causes of accidents within the workplace? Um, the main cause of accidents in warehouse and storage are basically, you've got slips, you've got trips, you've got falls. There are lots of them. Slips and trip accidents are a serious problem in any warehouse, right? And can happen anywhere at any time. Many a slip, trip, and fall is seen as a trivial, right? And just one of those things, right? Just one of those things. It happened. Get on with it, right? But the problem with it is it can and often create a lot of pain for the person that has slipped or tripped. But most slip, trips, and falls can be avoided. When you look at slips, usually happen. Why? Because the floor is wet, right? Or is contaminated. Within some warehouses, water, oil, cleaning products, dry powders, foodstuffs can all make a floor slippery. Other items such as shrink wrap, uh, label backing, the backing where you tear off a label, stick it onto it, there's a backing to it, that can cause it. Plastic bags can also cause slips. You have to try and eliminate these risks, that's going to cause the hazard that's going to cause harm. So try to stop the floor getting contaminated in the first place, right? Maintaining equipment properly, or when contamination does happen, deal with it immediately by cleaning it. Don't leave it for someone else to do, because that someone else actually might break their bloody neck by slipping on it. So keep in mind, if you come across a contamination on the floor, act on it immediately. And if it means you have to go off somewhere to get the product or the item to clean it, get someone else to stand beside the contaminated area, or get them to go and get it. You stand beside it. You have to be able to prevent accidents happening in the warehouse. Because if you have a serious accident, your warehouse could be closed down for days while the HSA and the likes of them, if it's fatality, you'll definitely have the HSA out and you'll definitely have the guards out. And they never work hand in hand. Right? The HSA will do their investigation and the Gardaí will do their investigation. Normally you're aware the guards do it first, then they let the HSA in to do it. And that could take up to 5 to 10 days. So prevention is better than cure in this case. We need to prevent a lot of accidents happening in and around the warehouse, right? Again, warehousing floors, most of them now have good slip resistance when they're clean, and dry, and of course, level. However, smooth floors, that become even a tiny bit wet or contaminated will be slippery. The rougher the floor, the better it will cope with water or other contamination. But again, the problem with that is if you look at most warehouse floors, they're not rough, they're not coarse, they're normally a very shiny surface. But yes, they are a problem and they are prone to becoming a slip hazard. It's the way it is. It is the way it is. So again, one way around it is the proper footwear. So PPE, proper non-slip footwear, they can help reduce slips. But again, companies have to consideration with footwear to control slip risks as a last resort. Because PPE is supposed to be only used. Remember, I spoke yesterday or the day before yesterday about the hierarchy, right, of incidents and accidents. You eliminate it. You must try and eliminate it. So, you have to try and eliminate the root cause, right? But you can only use PPE as a last resort. You try and eliminate the root cause, first. If you can't do that, you manage it. And obviously the way to manage slips, is keep the place clean. If you can't keep it clean, well, then you must produce or supply anti-slip or slip-resistant footwear. All right. With regards to trips, then, anything can cause a trip. Anything. Objects on the floor or uneven surfaces. They're normally the cause of trips. Right? Trip hazards can also include items like goods, as in cartons of product, waste packaging, banded strapping loops, the banded stuff that goes around pallets when it's thrown on the ground, you could trip on it. But also pallets themselves. Again, through my work, I've come across a lot of areas, right, where people could trip. You get a pallet just out the edge of the racking system where it's not pushed in properly. And it's just sticking out, an inch or 2 or 3 inches. It is a trip hazard. You've got, there's so many ways of preventing it. Like just pushing that pallet in properly prevents the trip hazard. Again, the other way is we can plan the workflows and we can plan the storage to make sure all goods, all equipment, and waste do not cause obstructions or, project into places where people, may walk, as like the pallets sticking out, projecting out onto a walkway. By keeping floors and traffic routes free from obstruction prevents incidents happening. Checking the floor surfaces, make sure, obviously, that both inside and outside of the building are clear of the likes of potholes or cracks or small little dents in the concrete. If there is, make sure they're filled. At avoiding a line where the concrete is stopped and there's another concrete floor, you sometimes get the edge of that split, breaking from constant forklifts going over it. But if you notice it, point it out to the manager. It's so easy, fill that. And it could be filled over the weekend and be solid come Monday morning when you come back in again. But if you don't inform the manager, he doesn't know about it or she doesn't know about it, nothing's going to be done, is it? So again, like I said the first day, communication is king. Always communicate like that because it could prevent somebody having a bad accident. The other thing that companies seem to fall back on is good lighting, both inside and outside the warehouse, especially now when things have gone so expensive. Electricity's gone so expensive. People are cutting back, right? But again, on an advisory capacity, I have introduced two very large warehouses, new lighting systems, right? And it cuts their electricity bill by about a third. But there's also, you have a system where as you walk in, what do you call them? Scanners or like a scanner would pick you up, right? And if it picks you up in the area, it just lights up that area. When you leave the area, the lights go out, right? So that's another system they have in, right? But providing good lighting is very, very important. Good housekeeping is also very important. If items fall off on traffic routes, clear them up as soon as possible. But also inspect the workplace regularly to make sure that there are no trip hazards. Okay? With regards to manual handling, you all received manual handling training. Yeah. Have you all got up-to-date certificates for manual handling training? Certificate lasts 3 years. Yeah?
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years, yeah? You're all okay with it?
I think
Because again,
might need to refresh mine.
Again, like you could do two things here, one of two things. You can talk to the FET and get them to put you down for the next manual handling course, right, that they will be providing. Now, it could be part of the next HGV rigid course where they'd have 16 people on it, but 5 of those 16 might have an up-to-date manual handling cert, so they can slip 5 more in on that course just to do a manual handling. But just ask, Mark, if yours isn't up to date, I know they just ask them, is there any room in the next manual handling course? You need manual handling. The other thing you can do is when you approach your employer, when you start work, your employer must insist that you have manual handling. And it's a mandatory course. So a mandatory course must be provided by the employer. They have to pay for you to be trained in manual handling. Right? It's a mandatory course. It must be provided. Okay? A lot of people suffer from work-related aches and pains, especially in the warehousing and storage industry. Right? And a lot of it is problems around lower back pain and, of course, neck pain. If there's a risk from manual handling tasks, try to avoid that task. Okay? If the task cannot be avoided, the risk of injury occurring must be minimized. And, one way of minimizing it is obviously don't do the task, don't carry out the task. But if it has to be done, get someone else to assist you or use a mechanical aid to move that particular heavy item. But do not attempt to do it yourself. Those of you who have manual handling will and should remember the 8 basic principles of manual handling. Right? You would have learned them in manual handling. It should have been very intricate. Right? The 8 basic principles. Right? And also, there's an acronym we use in manual handling training, and that is TILE, the word tile. Right? You assess the task, you assess the individual to see if they can actually perform the task. You assess the load, right? And then you assess the environment, around where the task is being performed. Is there a step? Have I opened that door? Have I got a rough floor? Have I got something to put down the box onto? Where am I putting the box? Is it clear? Is there room for that box? That's, and checking the environment. So TILE, task, individual, load, and environment. All right. But that's manual handling. And, if it's a thing you don't have it will be provided to you in your workplace. But my advice to you is try and get it before you get to the workplace, because again, you're putting it on your CV that you have all these programs done. And it's an added bonus to you going into a place if you've all the likes of forklift, certs, the likes of manual handling, the likes of first aid, safe pass, any of those courses will stand to you on your CV going into a place, because you will have all these certs. You will have that, that little bit more than any other person just going with a year's experience or, no experience. You'll be looked at first because you've spent your time educating yourself, bettering yourself, and employers like to see that. The other thing employers like to see on your CV, and you'll find this out the next few days, is voluntary work. If you do any voluntary work, again, put it on your CV. Employers love to see it. You're giving your time to something or somebody else. All right. You'll get to that with your CV instructor. All CV guys are different, so they may not even mention. I don't know. Okay, that's manual handling. Working from heights. That's a famous picture, isn't it? I think we've all seen that picture at some stage in our lives. But any working at height has to be properly planned. It has to be appropriately supervised, and it must be carried out in a safe way. Obviously, we tell people to avoid working at height if you can. But if it cannot be avoided, well, then you must select the correct equipment for that particular task. Like a platform, a scissors platform that rises up and down, rather than using a ladder. And most definitely, one thing you do not do is get on the blades of a forks or get onto a timber pallet and get the forklift driver to lift you up. That is a no-no. And if you're caught doing that, you could be dismissed instantly. Please do not do it. It's lethal. And again, we have looked at tens of accidents involving guys that have fallen off a forklift, at 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet in height. You could actually kill yourself falling 4 feet from the ground. 4 feet off the back of a trailer, you fall awkwardly on your head. You could kill yourself. So why risk being taken up 15 feet on a timber pallet on 2 blades that are no more than 6 inches, 5 inches wide? It is not worth the risk, and don't allow people to make you do it. Don't allow people to tell you to do it. You say no. And if they don't like it, if they want to let you go, by Jesus, I wish them luck. Right? Because you have legislation out there to protect you as the employee. There are services there, the the Workplace Relations Commission, the WRC, which used to be the Labour Court or the Labour Court. Yeah, there's lots of things out there that can protect you. So, if it's too dangerous to do, don't do it. You've only one life and one livelihood. Don't risk it. Please don't risk it. It's not worth it. Okay. With regards to what's next up next? Vehicles. Is it? Yeah. Cause of accident vehicles. Have a look at that. Have you seen that one before? It looks like an atomic bomb in a crate, doesn't it?
I literally just said that to Marcus, and it looks like a nuke.
Yeah.
Nuclear bomb, yeah, atomic bomb, nuclear bomb. In a, well, it might as well be. And again, listen, I could show you tons of videos with forklift, accidents and silliness, by forklift drivers. I can show you tons of them, and they're all on YouTube. Just go into forklift crashes or forklift accidents, and there's hundreds of them. It's true as God. But this particular one, as you can see, he literally drove straight through the gap and straight off the dock. Now, whether he was expecting a trailer to be there or not is not the issue. The issue is he could not see where he was going. Why? Because he was driving in a forward drive where the item was obviously blocking his view. He had the item up too high. What other reason can you give for such a silly accident?
Rushing.
Rushing, yeah. Definitely rushing. It's absolutely ridiculous what you see out there. And the company, by the way, can be held responsible for this accident as well. Because an open shutter like that, with no truck on the loading bay, there should be like a chain across it, or a preventative measure from stopping anybody walking out or anybody driving out through it. If you're going to leave the door open in the warehouse and it's on a dock, you must put in a preventative measure from somebody walking out or driving out through it. That's what you're up against. Moving vehicles, they need to be carefully managed, obviously to control and reduce the rate of accidents and collisions, both with other machines and with personnel. Okay. With regards to managing deliveries and also customers collecting goods, right? All employers involved in delivery and collection of goods should exchange any relevant information on health and safety, right, to any delivery guy or any person, as in, a customer collecting goods at their warehouse. Visiting drivers, for instance, you've got visiting drivers coming in to make deliveries. They should be given information that they need in advance to ensure their own safety and to ensure you as an operative's safety. Normally, when you enter a premises, there's more likely a security man or the driver coming in must report to reception first. Either way, that driver must be given a card. Now, all it's on it now is pictograms, right, of safety measures. The reason there's pictograms and not writing is because there's different nationalities, different drivers, different languages. So it's like a fire extinguisher now. A fire extinguisher now has to have pictograms on it as to how to use it. It's the old acronym, PASS. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze, and sweep side to side. It's got to show that now in an acronym or in a pictogram on the side of a fire extinguisher. Likewise, on safety notifications that must be given to drivers coming onto your premises or any personnel coming onto your premises visiting. They should be all shown this. And sometimes a company will ask a driver to sign off to say he has seen it, he accepts it, and he will implement it, or she will, on the premises. Okay? So that information on health and safety should be provided. Visiting drivers, they should be given that information all the time, even if they're a frequent driver coming on, because they need to know in advance. They need to be able to ensure their own safety. They need, the likes of one good safety measure for truck drivers is reverse on the side you can see through your mirror, not on your blind side. Reversing into a bay. Reverse from your right hand side where you can see with your mirrors, and your blind side you don't reverse on. Simple thing like that. Ramps, speed limits on the site. Getting out of the truck must wear the high vis jacket. They must use the pedestrian pathways. They must go to a driver safety zone when their vehicle's loaded or being unloaded. They're all safety precautions that you must inform the driver of coming onto the premises. Well, your company will have to do it. They have to think about how they're going to communicate with visiting drivers who do not speak, or only have a limited vocabulary or an understanding of English. Right? So that's why you have pictograms all the time. Right? So you just have to be careful. Pedestrian safety, it is a must. Pedestrians and vehicles, they have the ability to circulate safely. Workplace traffic routes must be suitable for the people and the vehicle using them. Where vehicles and pedestrians use the same traffic route, there has to be adequate separation between them. We always have to consider the complete separation of vehicles and pedestrians first. But where that is not possible, it is needed. We need to use other control measures. Traffic routes, they have to be properly designed. When you're doing that, you've got to consider the likes of the type of vehicle being used. You have to minimize the need for vehicles reversing. And like I said earlier, blind corners, you've got to be careful with sharp bends or blind corners. You've got to avoid, installing them when you're developing the site. You don't any potholes that develop. You've got to make sure they're infilled. You've got to be careful of anything that can affect the load stability. Okay, for instance, ramps. Slopes in the ramps. You've got to watch for that. That's really it in causes of accidents. There's lots of different causes there. Falling objects. That's just forklift. That's it. That's one of the forklift videos I was telling you about. You get them all on YouTube, right? But storage areas, they should be properly designed and clearly marked. Obviously, the layout of storage and handling areas should be avoided. They should avoid tight corners, awkwardly placed doors, pillars, uneven surfaces, and of course changes in gradient as regards slopes up and down. If you're using pallet racking, well, then make sure the pallets, are suitable for the type of racking you're going to use. You're going to put them into. Systems, racking systems should be properly designed and installed. And then it could include being able to safely take the loads of goods on and off the racking. And believe me, like you see lots of them. But I don't know how or where they got the racking from, but it doesn't suit what's needed. With regards to falling objects, we've got to take steps to prevent ourselves being injured by falling objects. if there are areas or specific activities in a warehouse with the risk of material objects striking someone, well, then we have to make sure the area is clear, is clearly indicated, and no unauthorized persons are allowed entry. Like mechanical handling itself, such as forklifts, there's been many a fatal and serious injury due to the lack of training and misconduct of employees with forklifts, mechanical handling. And again, most of this equipment operates at speed and has caused employees to be crushed or getting trapped between the units and the racking or when loading vehicles. You know, when people are purchasing these things, they can't go for the cheapest. They have to get a unit that's suitable for the job it's to be used for. Again, you know, all truck and operation areas should be suitably designed and it should be properly maintained for the use of that forklift. It's a must, you know. All types of products we store will create some form of risk. Like I said earlier, chemical paints, tinners will need to be stored in secure cabinets with an MSDS, and material safety data sheet must be attached to the outside of the cabinet. That way, before you even open the door of the cabinet, you know exactly what's inside it. That MSDS sheet should be on the door of any cabinet that is storing the likes of paints, the likes of tinners, the likes of any other chemicals, you know, that can, create burns on the skin or damage your skin or damage you through breathing inhalation. Fragile goods such as pottery from Denby can be easily damaged. You know, they will need to be packaged very well and handled with care to avoid damage. So labels with fragile handled care has to be marked on that type of product. So carriers and customers will obviously know to handle it with care. All right. Mechanical equipment, you know, that's an assortment of equipment used in any warehouse. It is there to assist employees in carrying out manual handling of heavy goods. It can be any of the following equipment: counterbalance forklifts, narrow oil trucks, reach trucks twice there, anything at all, power pallet trucks, side loaders, fork trucks, and manually operated pallet trucks. Any operators of forklifts must undergo professional training and must be in possession of an up-to-date license for the type of forklift they're operating. And it's important that the driver of the forklift knows the area they're working in and the hazards that are associated with that area. And by the way, like when you complete your forklift training, you're going to have 3 different certificates. As in, you know, normally they come out in credit card style. And you have 3 different ones. You will have one for counterbalance, one for reach, and one for power pallet. Now remember, there is a validation period on these licenses. They're not for life. Excuse me. You have to, I think it's 3 years now. It used to be 5. I think it's now 3 years now. You must go back and do a refresher course in order to keep your license valid. So, you know, if you want to keep the license, you've got to go back. I think the refresher for all 3 would probably be 2 days. But again, your company will provide that training for you. Because you need it to carry out the work they're paying you to carry out, well then they provide the training, you know, and give you the time off for the training. Tight forklift turning circles, you know, will need to know the layout of the area and all blind spots around your forklift, right? Good warehouse layout is important, and the turning circles must be sufficient to allow the driver to operate with safety. The danger of not being able to operate safely on turning circles is that the driver could lose his load or damage the goods or more seriously, injure pedestrians in the warehouse. The equipment can also cause serious damage to pallets of goods and to the racking by employees being reckless and careless while operating fork trucks.
1 second, Jerry. I'm just going to go
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
bathroom. All right.
Yeah, go ahead, shoot. I'll hold off.
Thank you.
I'll hold off.
Thank you.
All right. How are you finding this, guys? Just while we're waiting for Mark to come back.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's good, yeah.
You're taking something from it, I hope.
Yeah, definitely.
I have
Good.
it all written down, yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, it's important. You need to know. And again, like potential safety hazards in the warehouse, we'll go through them now in a second, but there's so many of them. It's unbelievable, because of the nature of the business, because of the moving machinery, because of the weight of the objects, or, the awkwardness of trying to lift them or trying to move them around or maneuver them around, picking, packing, sealing up things, and then moving it from your counter across onto a pallet. There's so much involved, that if you don't look after yourself, you will eventually meet with an injury. And believe me when I say this, we all do damage to our backs in our 20s and 30s, right? Or sometimes younger. But it doesn't show until our 50s or late 50s, late 40s, early 50s. That's when the injury shows. That's when the damage shows that you've done. It doesn't show in, the 20s or 30s when you do the damage. You might feel a pinch, like, oh, Jesus, what did I do there? You forget about it. But come your late 40s and early 50s, that's when you're going to need surgery to repair the damage done in your 20s. So the message I'm trying to put across is, if you don't look after yourself, first of all, nobody else will, right? You will pay for it later in life. Might catch it today or tomorrow, but in 10, 20, or 30 years' time, that's when you will feel it. So, please, take my advice on that. Look after yourself. If you don't, nobody else will. Believe me, nobody else will. So, a word of warning, as they say, a word of warning. It's important to look after yourself. Because if you don't, the company will to a certain extent, but if you don't have an interest in safety and health, well then, why should the company be worried about you? Obviously they don't want claims, but believe me, if they can prove that you were in the wrong and you weren't taking care of yourself, well, guess what? You won't have a claim against them. Because remember, everything now is on CCTV. No matter where you go, the CCTV. Right? So they'll see what you're at. They'll see what you're doing. They'll see, what do you call it? Horseplaying, right? In the warehouse, on the forklift, speeding, taking corners too sharp, that type of thing. They'll see all that because everybody uses CCTV now. Because of the claim culture we live in, they have to. So please, think about it and be careful. Look after yourself. Look after your health. And in the years to come, it'll look after you. Okay. I just wait for Mark to come back there. We'll just continue. There's not much left of him anyway. Yeah. You don't need that type of stuff. Yeah. I suppose it could. It could explain just in time for you. You don't need stock adjustments like it. ABC, safety stock, RLPs, you don't need any of that. All right. I might just explain just in time for you when we get there. Any comments, by the way?
No, you're very thorough with it, like, so. And you're explaining it all very clear as well, like, so.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for that. But it's important that we get the point, especially the point of safety. You know, when we get that across to you as clear as possible, because it is important in a warehouse. As you've seen, you know, over the last 3 days, safety is very important, and it's down to you. It's down to the company to provide, you know, proper safety mechanisms, but it's up to you to look after yourself. You know, you have a duty of care to yourself, as the employer has a duty of care to you as well. So look out for yourselves, guys. Like I said, nobody else will. So if you don't do it, they certainly won't do it. All right. PPE has to be the last resort to protect you against any harm. Like I said throughout the last 3 days, you know, with regards to the hierarchy of safety, the initial stage is elimination. If we can eliminate the risk, great. If we can't, we then have to manage that risk. And again, you know, in managing the risk, the last point, the last resort is PPE. Your personal protective equipment. The equipment must be kept clean, right? It must never be tampered with. It has to be a proper fit, you know, because a loose fit could cause the employee harm. It is an employee's duty of care to report any damage to your PPE to a supervisor. Okay? And that you must understand. You know, if it's damaged, report it. It will be replaced. You know, but it won't be replaced nilly-willy. You know, you can't, you know, just every 6 months go looking for a new pair of boots. Or every 6 months go for a new uniform. High-vis jackets, maybe. Gloves, maybe. But not every other week. Okay, so the PPE are given, in other words, you've got to look after it. Keep it clean, you know, and keep it without damage done to it. Okay. Any questions on what we've done today up to now? You don't need all that type of thing. I wanted a quick talk. Actually, before I go into JIT, and JIT, it's very important you know this because it's a just-in-time mechanism that a lot of warehouses are using now, right? But just before we go into that, can I just slip through what I call a checklist, right, of potential safety hazards within the warehouse? All right. One of the hazards is access and egress from a warehouse, right? They have to be, egress being the exit, they have to be clearly identified. They have to be kept clear, right? There must be emergency lighting on all exits and access points. We spoke about the floors. The floors must be smooth and even. If there's any steps, they must be clearly marked. Spillages must be cleared up. You know, we got to try and put in non-slip surfaces. And if that's impossible, non-slip footwear should be provided to all employees. With regards to steps and ladders that can be used, you know, to go up 2 or 3 pallets to try and get stock off them, or for checking, right? If they have to be used, They should be in good condition. It should be the correct size and capacity, and the metal, they can be either metal or can be electric lifts. All right. Your lighting has to be adequate levels, maintained, cleaned. Excuse me. Again, you should have emergency lighting in case there's a main power failure. Ventilation, if you're operating in an area where there's fumes or dust, your ventilation must be in place and it must be changed every hour. There should be certain alarm systems on it and they should be supervised. As in, the changing would be the filters. Noise levels, ear protection, for high noise. Okay? High noise areas. Vibration, again, the danger of machine failure or falling materials, okay, has to be looked after. Heat, temperature controls, ventilation, and then again, some form of notification if the temperature is to drop within the warehouse. Humidity within the warehouse, ventilation, air conditioning. Welfare, your welfare would be washing facilities, canteens, and of course, toilets. Okay? And again, depending on the work you're doing, showers. With regards to housekeeping, again, housekeeping, basically, a place for everything and everything in its place. That is good housekeeping. Storage and stacking, if it's done properly and safely stacked, it won't lead to accidents. Ease of access and placing or placement handling equipment, gloves, protective clothing, protective footwear, for within the warehouse. Portable tools, right, should be safe condition. They should be marked as checked, maintenance, maintained. And be very, very, very careful if you're using or have to use portable tools in the warehouse. Watch the trailing leads, right? Make sure there's no frays in it or breaks in the lead itself. Machinery, again, if there's machinery besides forklifts if you're a manufacturing plant, again, you've got to act responsible around them. You have to be trained on how to use them, and you must wear protective equipment, right? They must be well maintained, the maintenance regularly reviewed, and of course, any near misses or incidents should be reported. And the guarding, by the way, on machinery in production manufacturing areas is a British standard, believe it or not, and it's BS 5304. With regards to transport machinery, again, it's got to have the adequate capacity to do what you plan it to do. But you also have to plan the servicing, the inspections, and certification. All fork trucks must have what we call a thorough examination certificate. And that thorough examination happens once a year, every year. And it's not a service. It's the insurance company sends out a competent person to do a thorough examination. And they will check chains, strengths, they'll check, everything to do with the forklift, including the emissions. And they report back to the insurance company. And the insurance company may come back to you and say, repair it or it won't be insured. It's basically it. So you've got to plan your servicing, you've got to be ready for inspections, and you've got to be able to get that certificate. All right. Again, with machinery, you've got to train your staff. Okay. There has to be proper warning devices, cutouts, clearways, barriers, and again, incident reports which you fill out. Manual handling, again, your company has to define maximum weights, minimum weights, maximum weights, training, gloves, protective clothing, protective footwear. Okay, so there's a lot to do. And that's basically it. Maintenance, it's got to be a planned schedule for maintenance. And we went through the fire safety, right? All exit routes should be clear of obstruction. All exits must have lights on them. As a pair of battery lights or battery powered lights. Extinguishers should always be at every exit point or egress point, right? Fire hoses every 30 meters apart. As in fire points, they should be 30 meters apart and no more. And at that point, you could have fire extinguishers, sand buckets, fire buckets. Yeah. You could have the hose reels, the fire hose reels. You have the likes of that. But they must be strategically placed within the warehouse. And every single employee must be familiar with the location of all the different types of fire extinguishments. Right? They must be given training on it, and there must be drills done every year, at least every 6 months. Again, they must be familiar with all emergency procedures, all alarms. You know, activation of alarms. What do they mean? All right. Any outside contractors coming into the building, again, we have to control them. Their own safety. They must see a safety statement, right? That you, or sorry, not only you, but the contractors must follow. So, there's lots of them. With regards to JIT, this is something you're going to come across. It is a pull system as distinct to a push system. And what it means is that all requirements are effectively pulled from customers' orders. Stocks are not received until they're actually needed. And that's signaled by a customer requirement. Supplies are delivered right to the production line only when they're needed. Now, what that means is that stock levels of raw materials, of components, work in progress, and finished goods can be kept to a minimum. Now, all of that means that you have to have a carefully planned scheduling and flow of resources throughout the production process. And when I say that, I'll give you an idea now in a second of what we're talking about here. Modern manufacturing firms use sophisticated production schedules, scheduling software, right, to plan productions for each period of time. And that includes ordering the correct stock. Information is exchanged with suppliers and customers through the EDI, electronic data interchange, to help ensure that every detail is correct. For example, a car manufacturing plant might receive exactly the right number and type of tires for 1 day's production. And the supplier will be expected to deliver them to the correct loading bay on the production line within a very narrow time window. Main principles is that inventory is waste. Highlights the cost of stock and inventory. And the main theos behind this is right stock, right place, right time. 3 hours. Like, if you are not holding inventory in storage, well, then it's not costing you anything. Your supplier has all the inventory, and they have to worry about storage, and then they have to worry about getting it to you, JIT, just in time. Again, it means no safety stock. You don't have to have a safety buffer. It's all down to the supplier. They are left with that responsibility. The demands are normally up to date in real time. Accurate inventory and warehouse management is a requirement. They must have accurate information on all the stocks they have in place, the stocks that are coming in, and stocks that's ready to be delivered to the production line. The information that's required is a bill of material, lead time. What's the lead time between the order being put in and the time it reaches the production line? Customers' demands. What are the customers demanding from us? The manufacturing lead times. How long is it going to take to manufacture that item? And work in progress stock. What stock have we got of items that are almost finished, but they're work in progress? JIT basically means don't buy it, stock it, or make it, or ship it until it's absolutely required. Requires excellent supplier relationships, long-term supplier relationships, long-term forecasting, requires excellent manufacturing control, and demands excellent logistics organization. It may put a lot of risk to the suppliers. It does put a lot of risk on the suppliers. Only purchase inventory to meet the daily or hourly production demands. They don't bulk order, right? Massive reduction in warehousing and inventory costs and reduced space requirements. But you do need highly competent staff to make this all work. The advantages, it lowers stock holding, means a reduction in storage space required. It also saves on rent and insurance costs. Customer responsive methods of production, less working capital is tied up in stocks, less likelihood of stock obsolescence and stock going out of date. And of course, less time spent on rework as the emphasis is on getting it right first time. Disadvantages, little room or no room for mistakes as no buffer stocks are on hand. Your business is totally reliant on your suppliers. So potentially you could lose control of the order. There's no safety stock or buffer stock at hand to meet the peaks or spikes in demand. An example of a manufacturing plant is Dell. You know Dell, the computer manufacturer? Dell and Limerick took this to the nth degree. They would not pay for stock until the component went into was actually paid for. It was called in, anything that's called in, it's called in small quantities on a regular basis, and sometimes that's daily or twice daily. Massive levels of responsibility and risk to all their suppliers. But guess what? All the suppliers built and managed warehouses right beside the Dell factory in Raheen Industrial Estate in Limerick. When they say they would not pay for stock until the unit component went in to was paid for. If I order this Dell computer tomorrow in Dell, right, I have a choice. I'm given a massive choice of what I want, what type of computer I want, what programs I want on it, how I want it, backlit or whatever. Keyboard backlit, whatever I want, they will provide. But everything I want adds a price to the actual original price. And then you press send. It'll come back to you. This is your order. This is what you've specified. This is going to be your end product. Now, this is now costing €900. You have to prepay for that computer. And you hit pay. Once you hit pay, all those products, pieces of components that you wanted on this computer are automatically ordered from the supplier, who will then put it into the bin for delivery to Dell tonight or tomorrow morning or whenever the next delivery is. It has to be within 12-hour time frame. All the parts are brought in, right? They're entered into the computer that I've ordered. Once that computer is ready for dispatch and everything is checked and everything is working, well, then and only then does the supplier get paid for the products they've sent over to be put into the computer. If there's an issue with any product that's been put into the computer, if it's not working properly, payment is held until the problem is rectified. And then, once it's rectified, payment is made for the computer to the suppliers, for the parts to the suppliers. And again, the production line, everything is ready and go for the production line as the requirement is there to produce or build that computer that I want. All the parts are ready for it. Along the production line, it's all set and ready to go. And then I get my laptop within, 10 working days or whatever it takes. That's how it works. And that's how Dell have worked. All right? You don't need anything on stock procedures or stock procedure adjustments. That'll all come in time. Okay. Any questions on what we have gone through over the last 3 days?
None.
Did you learn anything?
Yes.
Right. So it has worked for you. That's the important thing. Like, it's important that I know that you're getting something from it. You know, if you're not, I've wasted my time and I've wasted your time. Okay. So it's important that I know you are happy enough with what you got. I know it can be long drawn out. I do a lot of talking, but I'm hoping you're taking notes as to what we're discussing because it will stand to you in the future. My email address, if you want to take it down there, right? Let's see. I can put it in the chat, can't I?
Yeah,
I can put it in the chat here for you. Let me see. How do I do this? Chat group, yeah. Okay. Very straightforward. So it's a meet and shoot graph chat there. H01@gmail.com. That's it. Take that down if you need it, because once we close off the program, that disappears, obviously. And like, if I can be of any help, just give me a shout. If any queries, or you come up against, you know, a brick wall when it comes to employment, just shout to me.
I appreciate that. No, as well, Jerry.
Thank you
No
very
problem.
much.
No problem at all.
Thanks,
No problem
Jolly.
at all. Okay, guys. All right.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
You're very welcome. You're very, very welcome. Okay, is there anything else we need to cover? Is everybody happy enough with what we've been through?
Yeah,
Any questions on anything at all?
No, I think I've asked my questions
There won't
already.
be a test coming up in this, will there?
Sorry?
There won't be any secret test or anything coming up on this.
Oh, jeez, there could be no.
We're ready.
No, Graham. No, Graham, you're all right. There'll be no test on this. On your forklift, you may have, and I'm not sure if most of forklifts do it. I know Safety First and the dock do it, but you may have a theory test, you know, on the theory of forklift operations. But, you know, you'll have learned all that by the time you've done your forklift training. You may, and again, they may not do it. Not all forklift companies do it. I know the RTITB, they insist on it being done, but whether it's done or not, it's down to the forklift operator, the training operator. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Your CVs, no. Your CVs, you just they'll help you produce a CV. You'll produce your CV. They'll probably ask you to email it to them. They'll check it over. They might give you some advice on it. They may not. I don't know. But you know, it's available to you. There's no test on it. That's about all you're doing. Is first aid. Are you doing the first aid courses? 3 day?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. First aid.
Next week.
Again, you have to be there. You have to be there the 3 days. If you're not there the 3 days, you won't get your certification. Right? So you're in-house for the 3 days. The last day you will do a theory and you'll do a practical. So you'll answer a few questions. Okay? And then you will do the practical with regards to first aid, CPR, and things like that. Okay? But you've been well versed at that stage. It's at the end of the course you're doing all that. And the instructors are there, they'll help you through it. You know, don't worry about it. Outside of that, the only other thing you have, I think, is your forklift. And it's very, very seldom anybody fails a forklift test. Because again, you're well tutored. The whole idea of the forklift is to get you the license. But what you've got to think of when you're doing your tests, slow is better. You know, take your time. You get to do it. Just take your time. Don't be rushing around trying to get through the test. All right. Okay. I'm going to leave you.
Thank you very much,
And
Jerry.
I wish you
Appreciate it.
all the very best in the
Thanks a
future.
million, Jolly.
Thanks,
And
Jerry.
as I
Thanks a
said,
lot,
if there's
Joe.
anything I can do for you, just
Thank
send
you.
me an email.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you very much.
Take care for now, guys. The best of luck for the future.
Thanks a million. Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
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 Thank you very much. Thanks.
You're very welcome, George. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.